Smoke Between Worlds, Chapter 1, Between the Seconds. It's 2025, Seoul, South Korea. Celia's life has fallen apart in one single moment. She's been fired. Now overwhelmed and unsure of her next step, she debates leaving Korea forever and returning to the U.S. until something strange moves within her thoughts. She decides to take a risk. Why? Because she has nothing left to lose. As we enter, it's night. Her room. The walls are bare now, boxes half packed, shadows in the corner where light used to live. Celia sat on the edge of her bed staring down at a photo. Her father, laughing in his uniform, arms around her mother holding a baby girl. Her. The frame had cracks, just like the story. The phone rang. She didn't want to answer, but she did. "Hey, Ma." Her mother's voice. "Baby, I heard they really let you go." "Yeah, I guess publishing isn't what it used to be. You know you can just come home. Just rest. You don't have to carry everything all at one time." "If I don't, then who will?" Another pause. The kind that mothers save when they know they want to say more, but they know it won't help. "It's a full moon tonight. Watch your dreams, baby." "Yeah, I will, Ma." She hangs up. She sits in silence. Fired, broke, alone, but free and ready. You know what? I should get started. I only have one shot at this. I have to try to make this work. Please. She lit the black candle, pulled out the ring she never wore, the one her father left behind, drew the circle in salt and ash. The photo went in the center, flame touching the corner, curling his face into smoke. Open. Time is the door. Let me in. The wind moved, but her windows were closed. The flame turned blue, the room dimmed, and just before the darkness swallowed everything, she saw him. Her father, far and away, reaching out. Then, nothing. Seoul, 1995. Minjae leaned against the back seat of the rideshare van, one arm draped over his bag. He hated these long commutes. Same streets, same neon, same tired thoughts. Then he saw her, standing at the bus stop like she'd always been there. Long tan coat, skin rich and radiant under the street lamp. Her hair pulled back, eyes staring straight ahead like she was looking through time. He blinked. She didn't move. The car kept going, but something in his chest didn't. Was she a ghost, a mirage, or just the most beautiful woman he had ever seen? Minjae twisted in his seat, watching her as long as he could. But the moment passed. The van turned, and she was gone. Her head throbbed. Her mouth was dry. She looked around slowly. Her body ached. It wasn't as smooth as she thought it was going to be. She blinked. She dashed down a narrow alleyway to collect herself. She touched her coat. Her bag was still there. Her ring, too. She stood up and brushed herself off, heart pounding. It worked. It actually worked. But what she hadn't thought was that she realized she had no phone, no money, and no father yet. She stepped out into the middle of the street. The signs, the cars, the clothes, the music, blaring from the nearby cassette vendor. It all felt like a memory that she had walked into that didn't belong to her. She wandered the streets for hours. People stared. She expected that. But what she hadn't expected was how many salons she found that would turn her away before she could even finish her sentence. Her Korean was clumsy. Her accent was thick. She knew few words, Enough to ask or to gesture or to smile politely, but not enough to convince someone to hire a foreigner. Still, she kept walking. Her feet were so sore when she finally saw it. A tiny wooden sign painted with a swirling lotus hanging above the door, tucked between a laundromat and a tea shop. The scent hit her first. Sandalwood, lemongrass, clove. She knew deep down in her bones this place would matter. She stepped inside. The shop was dim but warm, lit by paper lanterns and filled with shelves of dried herbs, stones, scrolls, and oils. She ran her finger over the jar of mugwort, then paused in front of the small altar. Pili Johan K. Snayo. Do you need something? Celia turned. The old woman stood behind the counter, watching her. Sharp eyes, soft hands, maybe late 60s. Celia bowed slightly, fumbling with her words. Oh, yakcho 있어요. Do you have this herb? She pointed to the jar of dried ginkgo root behind the woman. 시간 약초. Time herb. The woman narrowed her eyes. 왜 필요해요? Why you need it? Celia hesitated. Then she smirked. Time travel, she said in English. Then she repeated in Korean, thinking the woman would never believe her. 정말요? 시간 여행. No one in the world would believe that, right? But the woman's expression didn't change. She stepped out from behind the counter and walked closer. You came through the smoke, didn't you? She said in imperfect English. Celia froze. How did you... The woman nodded slowly. Your kind comes once in a while. Not often. But when the world tilts... She trailed off. Come, sit. 앉아요. Celia obeyed. They sat cross-legged on the cushions in the back of the shop. The woman poured tea from a chip teapot. My name is Han. I've been waiting for someone like you. Celia blinked. How could you... The veil thins every 30 years. I knew someone would be coming eventually. Just didn't think she would be so pretty, though. She chuckled. Celia smiled despite herself. You need a place to stay? Han asked. Celia nodded, desperately. Han poured more tea. Then, this is where your story begins. The rain had stopped by the time Minjae stepped out of the van. His apartment wasn't far, a quiet corner near the edge of Mapo district, where the city's noise softened into low hums and the smell of frying oil drifted from late-night kitchens. He adjusted his collar and exhaled. The night air cooled against his skin, but his mind wasn't calm. He kept seeing her, the woman at the bus stop, tan coat, stillness in her eyes. Not fear, not confusion. Something else. Something heavy. Like she had come from somewhere she wasn't supposed to. Ridiculous, he muttered under his breath. You just imagined it. Seoul was full of strange moments, faces caught in the light, the way memory sometimes lies to you. He laughed, shaking his head. A foreigner, he said to himself. And me, what would I even say? The idea of it made him uncomfortable. And, secretly, alive. Minjae was a man of structure, a software designer. Code and logic were his companions. Predictable and neat, he liked silence, he liked plans, and yet tonight, his world felt like static. Clean, organized, impersonal, the way he liked it. A single desk by the window, half-finished project open on his computer screen. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock. Ordinary sounds grounding him back to his life. But her face, that brief flash of worry, that searching look, it kept replaying in his head. He rubbed his temple, annoyed with himself. Get over it. Opening the fridge, he pulled out a pan, some sesame oil, and set it to heat. Garlic, rice, leftover kimchi. The rhythm of the cooking was his own kind of peace. His hands moved automatically, but his thoughts didn't stop. What was she doing here, standing in the rain looking so lost? And why did he care? He sat at the table, spoon tapping lightly against the bowl. The window reflected his face, and behind it, the faint echo of hers. Minjae took a deep breath and tried to let it go. But something in him already knew the next time he saw her, he wouldn't be able to look away. The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. Same sound, same ceiling, same routine. Minjae blinked into the gray light that seeped through the blinds and reached for his phone. No new messages. There never were. He waddled into his same routine, boiled some water, cracked an egg into instant ramen, and ate standing up, staring at the muted TV news, mind seemingly blank. The anchor's voice blurred into static. Something happened overnight, she said, but not here, not in his apartment, not in his life. The subway was crowded, but he barely noticed. Everyone's faces looked down, same glow of phone screens, same expressions of half sleep. He used to think he liked the quiet. Lately, it just felt more like disappearing. At the office, the day unfolded in codes and corrections. A bug in a new program pushed a deadline back. His team leader's voice sharpened. A co-worker sighed too loud. You're too slow, Minjae. You need to be more assertive. Words he's heard all before. He smiled politely, nodded, and stayed late to fix everything himself. By the time he left, the building lights were the only thing that was still burning. The next morning was no different, except for it was his day off. He didn't set his alarm, but his habit woke him anyway. He sat at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee, watching the steam fade, the quiet pressed against him. He thought about the woman from 2 nights ago, the woman at the bus stop. He told himself he was over it, but his mind replayed the way she stood there, her tan coat, and the way her eyes seemed to search for something invisible. Ridiculous, he told himself. But his chest felt something different that morning, like he was on the verge of doing something that he's never done before, something that was going to break the pattern. The streets buzzed with the early traffic and the low conversations. Minjae walked without purpose, or so he told himself, until he passed a small cafe, its windows fogged from the heat of the espresso machine. And there she was, the woman from the bus stop. Celia stood at the counter, awkwardly clutching a few bills, pointing at the menu, trying to pronounce the words. The cashier tilted her head in confusion. Americano. Celia tried. Hot, please. Minjae hesitated at the door. He could just walk away, stay invisible like always. But something in him moved first. He stepped forward. Americano, 한잔주세요. Dr. Kale. The cashier smiled in relief and began to prepare the drink. Celia turned surprised. Oh, thank you very much. 감사합니다. Minjae gave a small bow, shy but steady. It's okay, I saw that you were confused. Story of my life, really. He didn't know what to say next, but for once the silence didn't feel awkward. It felt like something was beginning to start, something he had been waiting for without even knowing it. The cafe door chimed behind her softly. "Thank you," Celia said. "감사합니다." Her voice gentle but uncertain. She offered a small smile before stepping out into the daylight. The sun had come out, pale but steady, and the air carried the smell of the roasted beans from this food from the nearby street cart. For the first time in days, the city didn't feel overwhelming, just alive. Minjae watched her through the glass, with that same polite smile that was still on his lips, the one that he gave when he didn't know what else to do. But as she walked away, something in him tugged loose. He lingered at the counter, pretending to check his phone. Then he reached for his cup. His reflection in the window looked back, calm, composed. Too composed, really. He stepped out into the sunlight. Celia turned right, moving slowly down the block, squinting at the street signs, one hand brushing a coat pocket as if checking for something. He hesitated, taking one step, then another. Not close enough to be noticed, just enough to feel like the gravity was deciding for him. Ridiculous, he told himself. She's just someone I helped with a coffee order. But his heart wouldn't listen. At the corner, she paused, looking both ways. Then he froze, glancing as if debating to take another direction. The breeze lifted, carrying the faint hum of chatter and the smell of jasmine from the passing vendor's cart. For a moment, he almost convinced himself to walk away. Then, excuse me, sir. Chokyo." The sound was soft, but it hit him like sunlight breaking through a cloud. He turned. Celia approached, holding the folded paper. "Hi, I'm sorry, do you speak English?" "A little," he lied, nervous laughter sneaking through. She stepped closer, unfolding the handwritten note from Han Rae. "I'm trying to find these places," she said, showing him the list with mixed English and Hangul. It's errands for a friend." Minjae leaned in, scanning the paper. "Ah, yes. These places are close, nearby, especially this one. This one's very close, about 10 minutes, really." He looked up. I could show you if that's okay." "Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that." Minjae nodded, and something inside him unclenched. He smiled, not politely this time, but softly, like someone remembering how. "Tamanachi," he said. "Of course." And they fell into step together. The sunlight followed them down the street, two strangers pulled by something neither of them could name. The air between them carried a quiet kind of ease, that new cautious calm that follows a shared laugh. Celia walked beside Minjae, coffee still warm in her hand, her eyes scanning shop signs she couldn't read. "Are you sure it's this way?" she asked. Minjae smiled. "I think so. Most herb shops are tucked away, old ones especially." They turned down a narrow street. The neon hum of cafes and phone stores faded into something older. Small wooden doors, chipped paint, handwritten signs curled at the edges. The first shop was dim, barely lit. Inside, there were shelves lined with jars of dried roots and pressed leaves. Celia leaned toward the counter. "Hello, 안녕하세요. I'm looking for this." She unfolded Han Rae's note. The old man behind the counter squinted, then shook his head. "모르겠어요. Try somewhere else." She bowed her head slightly, mimicking what she'd seen others do. 감사합니다. Oh. "No luck?" Minjae asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. He acted as if I asked him for poison." He smiled faintly. "Maybe to him, you did." They shared a small laugh before walking again. The next street was tighter, darker, the kind of place that people passed through, not stopped in. The second shop had no sign, only a faded curtain and the faint smell of smoke. Celia hesitated at the door. "Are you sure this is okay?" Minjae nodded once, but his eyes scanned the space around them. Something about the silence pressed too close. Inside, the shopkeeper looked up from a pot of steaming herbs. His eyes flickered to Celia, then to Minjae, then back again. "What are you looking for?" he asked flatly. Celia, unaware, began to unfold the paper again. This one, But Minjae froze. From the back room, voices carried through the beaded curtain. Low, sharp Korean tones. "Who's that? 누구요? Han Rae again?" "Yeah, she's sending foreigners now. You know what that means. She's doing something she shouldn't." The men laughed under their breath until one saw Minjae's shadow near the doorway. The sound stopped instantly. Minjae straightened and stepped forward, giving a polite bow. "Excuse us," he said, voice tight. "We were just leaving." Outside, the afternoon light hit too bright. Celia walked quietly, clutching her bag. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Minjae said. "Just, let's not go back there." For a few blocks, neither of them spoke. Then Minjae finally asked quietly, Who are you here with?" She looked up cautious. "I told you, just a friend." "And, where'd you say you were staying again?" She smiled faintly, trying to lighten it. "Why? You want to visit?" He didn't smile. "No. I just want to make sure you're safe." Her steps slowed. "I'm fine. 괜찮아요." He nodded once, but he didn't believe it. The silence between them stretched until they reached a small street landing, back to Han Rae's shop. When Han Rae opened the door, her face lit up in surprise. And something else. "You work quickly," she said, eyes darting between them. Celia blinked. "What did she say?" Minjae hesitated. "She said you made progress." Han Rae's smile deepened. "왔어. 왔어요. Come in." Celia stepped inside, but Minjae stayed near the doorway. "You're staying here?" he asked. Han Rae answered before Celia could. "For now. She's safe with me." Minjae frowned. "You barely know her." Celia raised her hands. "Okay, guys, are you two fighting over me already?" she said, forcing a laugh. But Minjae's voice turned low. "This isn't funny, Celia. You shouldn't trust people so easily." Han Rae's expression hardened. "And you shouldn't meddle in what you don't understand." Minjae stepped closer, voice firm now. "If you're into something illegal, I'll call the police." Celia grabbed his arm. "Wait! No, guys, stop. It's not what you think. Minjae." Han Rae snapped. "그만해! Enough!" But Minjae already pulled out his phone. Please, stop. 하지마. Please don't." In the struggle, her bag fell, scattering a few folded papers and a notebook and her ID. Minjae bent over to pick them up. He froze. The card was old, but the photo, it was hers. But the date of birth, the issue date. He looked up, his eyes dark with confusion. 이거 뭐야? What is this?" He held the card closer. "Fake?" Celia's breath caught. It's not fake." "Then what is this?" "Please," she said again, her voice trembling now. Just don't tell anyone." Han Rae stepped between them, her tone cold but steady. "I think you've seen enough for today, Minjae." The room went quiet, except for the hum of the old ticking clock behind them, the seconds stretching longer than they should. Clock ticking faintly in the background. It's starting to rain outside now. Han Rae stood still. Her eyes didn't leave Minjae's face. "You think you understand everything, don't you?" she said softly. Systems, rules, proof. Minjae frowned. What in the world are you talking about? Han Rae took one step closer. Her voice lowered, not angry, not soft, but knowing. Don't be so high and mighty. Don't be quick to judge others. You, of all people, should know what it's like to ask the universe for something impossible. He froze. What in the world? I know you, she said. I know you asked for this. For her. For a long time. Minjae blinked, his logic fighting against something deeper rising in his chest. This is ridiculous, he said, reaching for his phone again. I'm done with this. I'm calling right now. Han Rae's tone sharpened. If you call the police, she warned, you'll ruin your destiny. That stopped him. His finger hovered above the screen, breath caught between disbelief and something older. Recognition, maybe? He looked at Celia, eyes wide, pleading, confused, then back at Han Rae. You both are insane. Michaseo. You're crazy. He turned, heading for the door. Wait, Han Rae called out, her voice trembling now, the first crack of emotion. You felt it, haven't you? Haven't you? That pull? Minjae stopped, just for a second. She continued. You couldn't explain it. You didn't want to. Her eyes softened. But it's there. Since the first snow. He turned halfway, cautious. What are you talking about? The train, she said quietly. You wore a gray coat, 3/4 length, 4 years ago. There was a snowstorm. Her voice steadied, calm again. I was there. I bumped into you, and I placed something in your pocket. He froze completely. Her eyes glistened. You still have the coat. I know you do. Check it. If you don't believe me. He left. No words, no anger, just the sharp, shattering silence of disbelief. His apartment was darker than usual. He dropped his bag near the door and stood for a long moment, staring at the ID still in his hand. Celia's picture, the date, it couldn't be real. He stood, opened a closet, and pulled out the half-packed donation box. Inside, the gray coat, the one he hadn't worn since that winter. He ran his hands down the pockets, once, twice, and then stopped. Inside, a small drawstring pouch, and next to it, a necklace, a thin chain with a heart-shaped locket. He opened it slowly, empty, but warm. He sat back, staring at it, then at the ID again. Celia's eyes, the old date, the weight in his chest. Something told him this was real. Chapter 2, 3 Problems. So far you've seen Celia travel back in time to 1995. But what's happening with the people in her time, 2025? Let's drop in and take a look at some of these connections. As we enter. It's evening now, her apartment. The boxes were half packed. A suitcase leaned against the wall. Her laptop sat open on the table, the screen black. When the knock came, Celia almost ignored it. But then she heard his voice. It's me, Celia. Minjae. She opened the door. Minjae stood there, an older man with silver hair and svelte flame. The light from the hallway bronzed his skin, his expression calm but careful. The look of someone who learned to enter someone's grief without making it worse. Celia, you didn't have to come. I was nearby, he said. I heard what happened. He stepped inside, pausing at the sight of the boxes. You're leaving? Celia, I don't know yet. Maybe I should. He nodded once quietly. The kind of nod that people use when they want to disagree but won't. Han Rae can be difficult, he said. She has her reasons, even when they don't make sense. But this doesn't have to be your answer. She folded her arms, looking down. I appreciate that, but you know I can't stay here without work, she said. He looked at her, not pitying, but just thoughtful. You've done good work, Celia, he said. I'll see what I can do. Maybe the university has an opening. It's not much, but it's a start. You don't have to fix this, she said. Maybe not, but I can help. He looked around, just smiled, just enough to change the air between them. Then after a moment, don't pack everything, he said. Sometimes things turn around faster than you think. He turned toward the door, his tone still gentle. I'll call you tomorrow. Celia. All right. Thank you. 감사합니다. He gave a short nod and left. The door clicked softly shut. For a moment, she stood still, listening to the quiet. Then she exhaled, picked up the mug from the table, and sank into the chair by the window. Outside, the city lights flickered, ordinary, distant, and somehow comforting. Meanwhile, back in 1995, morning came cold and colorless. Celia stood outside Han Rae's shop, clutching the small folded map the woman had given her. The paper was soft at the edges, drawn in uneven ink, streets that bit like veins. Start with what you can remember, Han Rae said. Celia nodded and stepped into the fog. Her coat disappeared beyond the corner, her footsteps fading toward the waking city. Han Rae stayed outside the doorway for a while, eyes following where the girl had gone. Then she turned back inside, whispering to the air. Now, the threads had begun to move. Inside, she gathered her satchel, empty jars, and a strip of cloth to tie her hair back. The scent of sage and rain filled the room as she began to prepare her tonics for clarity, powders for concealment, herbs for steadying the heart. Her hands moved quickly, but her face remained calm. Something told her that she would not return before nightfall. Across the city, Minjae hadn't slept. He sat on the edge of his bed, the small ID card turning over and over in his fingers. The same face, the same name, but the date, impossible. He tried to dismiss it. Forged, fake, some foreign trick. But logic kept collapsing under the weight of what he had seen. Her strange questions, the unfamiliar accent, the way she looked at things, like someone seeing the world for the first time. He rubbed his eyes, ran his hand through his hair, and stood. The sun was pale against the window, but the pull in his chest was clear. He needed answers. He dressed, threw on his jacket, slipped the ID into his pocket, and stepped outside. Meanwhile, Celia remembered a street name, half forgotten from her mother's stories, a green gate, a row of persimmon trees, a bus stop that was surrounded by lavender flowers. She followed the map until the rooftops changed color, until the smell of incense and herbs faded into laundry soap and diesel. People turned and looked back at her as she passed. She smiled, bowed slightly, asking in halting Korean, "Excuse me, Chogyo, I'm looking for a family. Family Mitchell, Rosalie Mitchell, and Thomas Mitchell. Arayo, do you know them?" Most people shook their heads politely and kept walking. An older woman finally stopped, wiping her hands on her apron, eyes narrowing as she tried to understand. Celia repeated the names, pointed to the small photo that she kept in her pocket. The woman's expression changed. Pity, surprise, then quiet sorrow. She spoke quickly, words tumbling out of her mouth in rhythm. Celia couldn't follow. The woman's voice softened. She touched Celia's shoulder. Celia nodded weakly. Though her ears was ringing, she thanked her. She bowed, and she walked away, unsteady. The sound of traffic blurred. The city tilted slightly around her. Meanwhile, back at Han Rae's shop, the bell above the door gave a soft chime. Han Rae didn't look up. She was already pouring tea. "You came sooner than I thought," she said. Minjae stopped in the doorway, his hand still on the knob. His expression was tight, guarded. "What did you put in my pocket?" Han Rae smiled faintly, setting down the teapot. "Nothing that wasn't already yours," she said. He frowned, crossed the room, but not sitting yet. "That's not an answer," he said. "Well, it's the only one that fits." She gestured to the chair. The tea steamed between them both. When he didn't move, she sighed softly. "I knew your mother." That made him stop. His voice dropped, wary. "My mother's been dead for years," he said. Han Rae nodded slowly. "Yes, but love doesn't end with breath. She misses you. She loves you still." Minjae's jaw clenched. "You don't know her," he said. "I know the boy she raised. The one who built castles out of sand and stories. The one who played with a white dog that never left his side. The boy who said he would marry a princess someday." His breath caught. Something in her tone made the air feel heavier. "You lived on your own for so long, Minjae. In your own world, you feared the noise of others. But your heart, the one you buried deep within, it's awake again. You just don't recognize the sound." He finally sat down, his gaze fixed on the steam rising between them. "I don't believe in that kind of thing," he muttered. Han Rae poured the tea, her movements calm, knowing. "Belief isn't required, only honesty." Her eyes lifted to his, deep, patient, unblinking. "Tell me, what do you feel when you think of her?" Minjae's mouth opened, but before he could answer, the door burst open. The bell trembled. Celia stood in the doorway, eyes red and tears streaming down her face, breath shaking. By the time she reached the shop again, she could barely breathe. She pushed the door open. She didn't even notice Minjae sitting at the table as she burst in clumsily. Han Rae looked up from the counter. Minjae stood as she entered. Celia's voice broke into pieces. They're gone. They're gone," she gasped. "My parents, they're gone." Her knees buckled. Han Rae crossed the room in 2 steps, catching her before she hit the floor. "Shh," she whispered, stroking Celia's hair. Lie down, my child. The truth is never what it seems at first." But Celia didn't hear. She was lost somewhere inside of her own sound of her crying. Han Rae covered her with a rolling blanket and stood there for a long moment, her eyes distant, her lips moving in a language older than either of them. And Han Rae brushed the tears from Celia's cheeks with the gentleness of someone who had done it 100 times before. "Calm yourself now," she whispered. "Breathe, child. You will see the truth soon enough. Nothing stays hidden forever." Celia's body trembled. And beneath the blanket, her breath became short, sharp pulls, like she was drowning in the air instead of water. Han Rae glanced at Minjae. He stood near the table, motionless, his hands clenched at his sides, his face pale and tight, his eyes dark with something unspoken. "Stay with her," Han Rae said softly, her voice carrying quietly. "I'll make tea that will calm her." Minjae swallowed, nodding once. As Han Rae disappeared into the back room, the silence between them thickened. The sound of the kettle was faint in the distance. Celia turned slightly, her voice fragile. I thought they were still alive. I thought that if I found them... No, this is my fault. It's because I changed their fate. Me being here, I changed it. It's my fault. Now, I've lost everything. Her sentence dissolved into sobs. Minjae lowered himself slowly, kneeling beside her on the floor. For a long moment he didn't speak. He just watched her, his chest rising unevenly. When he finally did, his voice was quiet, uncertain. "Celia, don't decide yet. We don't know for sure." She looked at him through blurred eyes. He hesitated. Then in Korean, his tone changed, lower, steadier, a tremor of emotion beneath it.
아직 확실하지 않아. 내일 다시
It's not
가보자.
certain yet. Let's go back tomorrow. Yeah? Celia blinked, trying to process his words. He switched briefly from English to Korean, from Korean to English, his voice tight with reason, as though trying to explain it to himself, really. There could be a mistake. Yeah, this is a misunderstanding. Maybe the words didn't translate right. You don't know for sure what was said. So just, yeah, it could be a mistake. Then again in Korean, softer this time, almost to himself.
언어가 다르면 마음도 오해할 수 있어.
When the language is different, even the heart can be misunderstood. Celia's lips trembled, her tears slowing. She didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either. Minjae exhaled, running his hand through his hair, the sound of the kettle whistling in the background.
괜찮아요. 제가 같이 갈게요.
It's okay. I'll go with you, he said softly. He reached for the blanket, tucking it around her shoulders, his movements awkward but sincere. From the doorway, Han Rae watched him quietly, the tray still in her hands, steam curling from the pot. A smile touched her lips. Her voice was low and clear. Good. It seems the tea has already done its work. Very good. She stepped forward, setting the tray on the floor beside them. Minjae, she said, pouring the tea. Stay with her tonight if you can. She'll need a steady presence. He didn't look up. He only nodded once, eyes still fixed on Celia. Han Rae stood, her gaze moving between them, the first threads of her plan weaving into place. In the silence that followed, the world outside the shop seemed to hold its breath. The tea steamed softly in the stillness. Celia's breath had slowed. Minjae's voice had faded into a low murmur beside her. Han Rae watched them for the last moment. Then she turned toward the door. As she headed for the door, pulling the coat around her shoulders, the air had shifted, cooler, touched by the hour between light and dark. Her assistant appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Song-sing-님, 어디 가세요?" "Teacher, where are you going?" Han Rae fastened her last buttons of her coat. "The herb I need to be harvested must be done so before the crescent moon," she said. I must pick it myself. It is rare and a particular herb. I must find it. The assistant tilted her head. Songse Neem? Which one? Han Rae smiled faintly. The kind that listens to the heart. The one that they used to call the herb of love. She opened the door to the shop. The bell gave its soft metallic chime. Outside, the evening light burned gold on the horizon. Softly to herself, she said, just in case destiny decides to cooperate this time. And then she disappeared into the evening breeze. The door closed behind her, but inside, Minjae sat beside Celia, silent and unmoving, as the last traces of sunlight curled through the steam of the untouched tea. The night stretched long. Celia drifted in and out of sleep, her breath finally steady beneath the blanket. The smell of the tea and herbs hung faintly in the air, mixed with the low hum of the street beyond the window. Minjae hadn't moved for hours. He sat cross-legged on the floor beside Celia, elbows resting on his knees, watching the steam fade from the cups. Every few minutes, Celia stirred, whispering fragments of names, half dreaming, half calling. Each time he looked up, almost answering, but the words never came. When the morning came, the light crept in soft and gray, slipping across the wooden floor. Celia blinked awake, disoriented, her voice small. Did I fall asleep here? Minjae nodded, his voice hoarse from silence. Yeah, you cried yourself to sleep. She turned away embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. He interrupted gently, shaking his head. Don't apologize. Then, quieter. You shouldn't believe everything you hear right away. Celia frowned, still groggy. What do you mean? He stood, stretching stiffly, avoiding her eyes. Yesterday, you didn't understand them completely, did you? The language? She hesitated, nodding. I tried, but I don't know. Maybe I... Let me go, he said. I'll talk to them myself. Celia sat up quickly, the blanket falling from her shoulders. No, don't. You don't have to. It's okay. I just need to make sure. That's all. She watched him uncertain, her heart caught between relief and fear. He picked up his jacket and hesitated, the practical tones seeping through, hiding his feelings under his logic. I'll ask around. Maybe it's just some misunderstanding. Maybe they were talking about something else. Yeah, maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Celia's eyes followed him to the door, her voice barely above a whisper now. Minjae, come on, while. He paused, hand on the frame, then glanced back once. Don't thank me yet. He turned. Then she called after him. Wait, please let me go with you. He nodded. She grabbed her coat, and off they went together. The door closed gently behind them, leaving the hum of the morning, the sound of two hearts learning to listen across worlds. The streets were quieter now, washed pale by early light. Celia kept close behind Minjae, clutching the folded map in both hands. He walked with purpose, not fast, but steady, his expression unreadable. It should be somewhere around here, he said. Celia nodded, eyes darting between the map and the narrow streets. Laundry hung like flags of ordinary life, a reminder that somewhere, maybe just a corner away, Someone was living the story she came to find. When they reached the house with the green gate, Minjae hesitated. He looked at her, just a glance, before stepping forward and knocking. Celia said softly, This is it, I think. A pause. Then the door opened. The same woman from before appeared, apron-tied, face more alert this time. Ah, the girl from yesterday. Celia bowed slightly, her heart already thudding. Minjae stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. About the accident you mentioned yesterday. Could you explain again, please? The woman frowned, thinking. She started to speak slow and clear, her hands moving as she described something smaller, lower to the ground. Celia's eyes flickered between them, confusion deepening. Finally, Minjae turned to her. It wasn't your parents, he said softly. She said it was just 2 dogs, the family dogs. They were in the road when the truck came. Celia blinked. Dogs? She said everyone was upset, that they loved them. But your parents, he stopped himself, realizing the words that followed would sound impossible. They're fine, Celia. They're away. They've been at the community fair all week. She said they're helping with a performance tomorrow, something the children are putting on. Celia stared past him, her face emptying of sound and color. The woman continued talking, her tone warm now, a bit regretful. Minjae translated quietly. They're kind people, she said. Everyone here loves them. She said the community plans to dedicate tomorrow's performance to your mother, Rosalie, to thank her for all she's done. Celia's lips parted. Rosalie? She whispered. My mom? Minjae nodded. Tomorrow. They'll be there. They walked in silence. The sun hung low, the sky heavy with the gentle quiet that follows after confusion. Celia's steps were slow, her fingers tracing the edge of the map. Thank you, she said finally, her voice small, for coming with me. Thank you. Minjae shook his head. You shouldn't thank me till it's over, he said. Well, I know I want to go to the fair tomorrow, she said. I'll take Han Rae with me. Maybe it's best I go with her. I know this has been a lot of trouble for just a coffee order. He stopped walking, looked at her, really looked. I'll see it through, he said simply. It's not any trouble. She smiled, faint and unsure, but this time he didn't look away. The next day, the air was soft and heavy, with the scent of the rain that never came. Minjae waited by the gate before he entered, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. He'd come here with a purpose, to help her find the truth, not to feel this. Then she stepped out. Celia's green dress caught the light of quiet waves, brushing against her knees as she walked. Her hair, loose but tamed, framed a face that looked both fragile and strong. Lighter now, but shadowed by the weight of what they learned. For a moment, he forgot the reason they were going. The anxious ache that he carried eased, replaced by something unspoken, a warmth that felt almost dangerous. Han Rae followed them to the door, smiling, locking the shop door as she peered through the glass. Her eyes lingered on the two of them with quiet satisfaction, as if watching a plan slide neatly into place. Minjae cleared his throat, forcing a smile. He said, glancing at her, you almost look like you belong here. Celia gave a soft laugh. Almost? Yeah, he said, teasing. You just need to learn to pretend like you're not nervous. Chega, Me? I'm not nervous, she said, but her voice betrayed her. He chuckled. Good. Then I guess I'm the only one then. That broke the tension just a little. They walked side by side, the silence between them comfortable now, but not heavy. As the road curved towards the lights in the distance, she spoke. Celia met Minjae's eyes. Okay, I lied. I am nervous. Is this too much? She asked, smoothing the fabric nervously. He shook his head. No, it suits you. A pause, then a half smile. You might even make the fair look dull, he said. That made her laugh, soft, real, easing the tension that had lingered since the morning. They started walking. The street was alive with the hum of the evening. Chatter, market bells, the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from somewhere ahead. Minjae walked beside her, close enough to feel the brush of her sleeve. For once, he wasn't sure if he was leading her towards answers or away from everything he understood. The fairground shimmered with lantern light and music. Children darted between rows of stalls, clutching paper toys and sticky sweets. The air smelled of grilled chestnuts, sesame oil, and something sweet Celia couldn't name. She slowed as she entered the square, eyes wide, taking it all in. The laughter, the colors, the swirl of sound. It's beautiful, she said. Adam de Royal. Minjae glanced around. It's the same every year, he said. Then, softer, almost to himself. I just never noticed it like this before. They walked side by side through the crowd, weaving between food stalls and lanterns strung between bamboo poles. At one stand, a woman turned batter over a hot griddle, steam rising in ribbons. Minjae stepped forward and ordered something quickly in Korean. The woman smiled and handed him 2 small paper cups, each holding a golden pastry. He passed one to Celia. Try it, he said. She looked suspicious. What is it? Hotokieo. It's sweet and hot. She took a bite, then winced, waving at her mouth. Oh my God, it's like lava. He smiled quietly. A real laugh this time, short, unguarded. You were supposed to wait. Celia smiled through the heat. You could have warned me. When I was little, he said, still watching her. My mother used to buy me one every year at the fair. I'd eat it fast, too, then. She looked at him, eyes softening. Guess some things never change. Oh. Pretending not to smile. And then he moved on. The kind of easy silence that doesn't need to be filled. At another stall, an old man was carving small animals from wood. Rabbits, birds, tiny dogs. Celia stopped, watching his knife move. Then, she picked up one of the figures, a little dog with the kind, round eyes, and she turned to Minjae. For you, sir, she said. He blinked, surprised. Why a dog? Celia shrugged, studying the carving. Because I know you like dogs. The noise of the fair seemed to fade for a moment. He froze, the humor gone, replaced by quiet stillness. He hadn't told her that. He hadn't told her anything at all about himself. Not his childhood, not about the dog that had followed him everywhere. Not about the day he lost it. 어떻게... How, he began. Then he stopped. Celia tilted her head slightly. Am I wrong? He shook his head, his voice lower. No. You just listen too well, I guess. She smiled. And you helped too much. They stood there, close but not touching. The air between them charged and calm all at once. The music from the stage drifted toward them. Soft drum beats, the distant chatter of children rehearsing their dance. He looked at her again, wanting to ask how she knew. But before he could speak, her face lit up. "What's that?" she said, pointing toward the far end of the square. The moment broke gently, scattered into laughter and light. And whatever question had formed in his mind about her, about the strange way their lives seemed to echo, dissolved with the sound of her voice. "Come on," he said. "They're about to start." They followed the music toward the stage, their steps falling into rhythm, lantern light flickering across their faces like the pulse of something inevitable. The fair was alive with color, lanterns swaying, laughter spilling across the open square. Children ran between booths. Music rose from the small stage where the group of girls practiced in bright handbook skirts. Celia followed beside Minjae, eyes wide with wonder and ache. Everywhere she looked, something familiar tugged at her. The food stalls, the smell of sugar and oil, the sound of a melody she half remembered from her childhood. They stopped near a crowd gathered around the stage. The announcer spoke in Korean, smiling, voice carrying over the music. Minjae leaned down, translating softly. "They're giving a dedication tonight to someone named Rosalie Mitchell." Celia froze. Her eyes darted across the stage. And there she was, her mother. Younger, radiant, laughing as she accepted the flowers from the children, bowing deeply, her name echoing through the air. Beside her, a man, her father, Thomas, younger, taller than she remembered, his arm brushing Rosalie's as they raved. Celia's breath left her body. She didn't cry right away. The tears just slid down silently, one after another, as she stared, the sound fading, the lights blurring. Minjae said nothing. He just sat beside her, his own chest tight, watching her as she seen her past alive again. The crowd clapped, the music swelled, and the children's song of thanks and hope surrounded them. When the performance ended, people began to drift away. Celia and Minjae followed slowly, lost in the crowd. The lantern light caught her face, wet, trembling. The fair had thinned into a soft murmur. Lanterns flickered low, the air warm with the scent of oil and smoke. Rosalie and Thomas stood at the far end of the street, talking with neighbors, laughter rising gently. Then Celia's voice cut through the air. "Ma?" Heads turned. "Rosalie?" Rosalie froze mid-laugh. Her name hung in the air, sharp and foreign in the night. Thomas's brow furrowed. They both turned. Celia was standing under the lantern light, her face pale, eyes wide and trembling. Thomas stepped slightly forward, confusion in his voice. "I'm sorry, do we know you?" Celia's throat closed. "Dad, it's me." He shook his head. No, we don't have a daughter yet." Minjae froze behind her. His mind flickered, not at the words, but at the way Rosalie's face changed the moment she saw Celia. Rosalie lifted her hand, gently touching her husband's arm, stopping him from saying more. Her eyes, soft and searching, never left Celia's face. Then, Celia reached into her pocket, fingers trembling. She pulled out the small gold ring, aged, but polished from the years of touch. Her voice barely a whisper. Ma, do you recognize this? Rosalie's eyes widened. Thomas took a step closer. Celia held out the ring in her palm, the same ring Thomas wore on his hand, the one catching the light now as he looked down at it. On the inside, the faint engraving glimmered under the lantern glow. The letters OLW, CW, PAL. Rosalie's lips parted. She read it aloud, trembling. Our line will continue with passion and love. Her voice broke on the last word. Thomas looked between them, the ring in Celia's hand, the same ring on his finger. Minjae didn't move. He couldn't. For a heartbeat, time seemed to fold on itself. Mother and daughter, past and future, standing in the same breath of night. If you're interested in seeing what happens to Celia and her parents, check out Chapter 3, The Weight of Truth. See you there.